Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode. What's going on, everybody? In this episode, we are going to be talking about lack of prioritization in your life and in your marriage. First things first, I just want to give a quick life update for us, and then we'll dive straight into the episode. This episode, you're only going to be hearing me. My wife, Julie, is currently with our baby in the hospital, as you may have heard in some of our past episodes and posts and things like that. We had our fourth child born a few months ago, back in June, and he has spent all of that time in the NICU at the hospital, and he is making progress and doing really well, and we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel of when he might be able to come home. And as that's happening, one of the things that we needed to practice this weekend with him was doing feeds orally all around the clock. And so my wife and I have been taking shifts, and I've been doing the day shift with him, and she's been doing the night shift with him. And in doing that, she is there on a night that we were planning on recording. So I'm taking over the podcast this week and putting a whole episode out there. And so she should be back next week, no problem. And we'll get right back on track with the two of us. But for this one, you get just me, and we're going to have some fun here. So we are talking about lack of prioritization in your marriage, in your own personal life, and how they affect each other. If you're not prioritizing things properly in your own life, or when you have a lack of prioritization in your marriage or in your own life, I should say, everything starts to get out of balance. And as we know, when things get out of balance, if things stay that way for too long, that can start to cause damage. You can think of that in terms of, your body. If you're having poor posture or something like that, and it stays that way for too long, it's going to cause some damage. If you are driving down the road and your tires on your car start to get out of balance, they're going to start wobbling and making a lot of extra noise and start to cause some additional damage to your car. So when things get out of balance, you have to try to repair that or correct that sooner rather than later to prevent that damage from happening. And so as I've been thinking about this episode tonight, I'm going to give you 4 different areas of your life that I want you to make sure you're actually prioritizing correctly. And when I say correctly, I don't necessarily mean that you have to prioritize them in the order that I'm going to give them to you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying in each one of these areas, make sure that the things that need to be a priority within that area are staying a priority. And some of these things intertwine with each other, but they're definitely worth the separate emphasis that I'm going to give them. So keep that in mind as we go through the episode here. So the first thing that I want you to prioritize, you could probably guess this one. I want you to prioritize your spouse. And this is a marriage podcast, so I don't know what you thought you might hear on this besides that. And if you think that that one's kind of obvious, wait until we get to number 4. But make sure, this is important because I want you to make sure that your spouse feels like that they are at the top of your list. And you can do this simply by just eliminating distractions when you have alone time with them, or just making sure that you're telling them good morning first thing when you wake up, rather before you do anything else, before you go get ready for work, before you roll over and look at your phone, anything like that. Just make sure the first thing you're trying to do is roll over and tell your spouse good morning. The second thing that I want you to work on prioritizing is your time. And if you don't prioritize your own time, your own personal time, and when I say personal time, I'm not meaning just like alone time when you get to go do whatever you want to do. But, your own time in general, work, when time that you're at home, time that you're doing hobbies, time that you're out with friends, if you don't prioritize any of that properly, that's going to start to bleed over into other areas of your life, like your marriage. So make sure that you're giving an appropriate amount of time to everything in your life. And the key word here is appropriate. It's okay to do a lot of different things. That's absolutely fine. I'm not saying that you need to quit your job. I'm not saying that you need to cut out a hobby that you like to go and do. But what I am saying is that make sure you're giving an appropriate amount of time to all of that. Because when you allocate too much time to any one specific thing, it's going to start affecting other areas of your life. It's going to throw the time off balance and cause issues in other areas. Oftentimes, this does naturally just get implied towards a work setting. You're working too much and you need to be more at home or something like that. And that is true, but it can happen in other areas as well. If you are giving too much time to a hobby that you enjoy and you're still shorting your family or your spouse on time that you could be spending with them, you're going to be out of balance. It's okay to have all of these things in your life. Just make sure that you're giving appropriate amounts of time to each different thing. And, a simple way you can do this is just kind of plan out your schedule, plan out your time, see where you're currently allocating your time, and if there's anything that you should change. I mean, if you're spending 80% of your time at work or doing a hobby, or heck, if you're spending 80% of your time with your spouse, that could also throw things out of balance. If you're doing that, then that may mean that you're not getting work done. Maybe in this season that we've a lot of us have been able to work from home. If you and your spouse are now working from home together and you get distracted with each other, just that time that you get to spend together, that's going to start affecting your work life as well. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to on a marriage podcast to be telling you, be careful about that. But if it's going to start affecting your work and you end up losing your job, then that's going to in turn affect your marriage negatively too. So just be aware of all those different things and make sure that your time is properly balanced. Number 3 is prioritize your money. I'm a financial coach, so obviously when I'm left to do the podcast on my own, I have to find a way to sneak something in here about making sure you're managing your money properly, and this was it. So prioritize your money. This is extremely important in all reality. I mean, I joke a little bit about this just then, but this is really extremely important. And the other part of this is that in a marriage, you have to do this together. You have to prioritize this together. And basically, what you need to do is you need to prioritize this in a way that makes sense for your family. The most simplistic way to do this is by writing out a budget, and you'll be able to easily see when you do that if you are prioritizing desires over necessities. And if you're starting to prioritize desires over necessities, again, we're talking about prioritization and balance here. You're going to be out of balance. Your budget is going to be out of balance. Your financial situation is going to be out of balance. You have to try and find a way to turn that around. So make sure that you're working together with your spouse to prioritize the proper things that you're going to spend your money on as a married couple and as a family, so that this area of your life stays in balance. And number 4 is prioritize your marriage. And this may sound like the same thing as number 1 when I said prioritizing your spouse, but it's definitely not. The way I'm looking at this one is when you choose to prioritize your marriage, you're choosing to link arms with your spouse and not let things come between you. So that could be as simple as a conflict between the two of you. When a conflict happens, you are working together to get through it, to find a resolution to the conflict. And we've had other episodes about conflict resolution, and basically the idea here is that you're working together to get through that to the other side. You're working together to find a common resolution, not, Thomas, wants to win this fight against Julie so that I'm the winner. That's not really a resolution. That's not working together and prioritizing my marriage. That's prioritizing myself over my wife, which is backwards from number one as well, and prioritize your spouse. You should be trying to look at things from their point of view. But it's not just about conflict resolution. It can be other areas of life as well. When your spouse is going through a difficult season, let's say they're having a rough time at work, or we've talked about major projects or things that they're in the middle of working on that are just super stressful to them. You may not be able to step into their job and take over some things for them, but you can help bear the burden in other ways. You can find other ways at home or in your marriage to help out with that, finding ways to help them relax, making sure you're really digging into their love language and making sure you're really pouring that over them in a time of high stress. You can make sure that you're picking up some extra chores around the house to just kind of relieve that burden from them when they come home. Just because they typically do one certain chore doesn't mean you can't. You can absolutely jump in and help out. And if that's going to relieve some stress off of them in a difficult season for them, then that's what you should definitely be doing. And that's how you can prioritize your marriage and make sure that, you're lifting them up and helping them to get through things as well. Another thing, when other people try to cause drama, you guys just help each other to block that out. There's all kinds of drama that happens in life. It can happen with friends or family or coworkers or anything. And when that drama starts to kind of sneak in, it's okay to talk about those things. But when you start to see it try to take root in your marriage, that's when you have to really block that stuff out. You have to see that blind spot for your spouse. If it's drama that's coming from some area of their lives, you have to be able to see that for them, see that blind spot and help them to tune that out and say, hey, you know what, let's forget about the drama that's happening there. And, let's focus somewhere else on something else that's positive happening in our life. And, in turn, they'll end up doing the same thing for you. So quick recap here: prioritize your spouse, prioritize your time, prioritize your money with your spouse, and prioritize your marriage, which is different than just prioritizing your spouse. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Like I said, Julie should be back next week. No problem. And we'll be right back continuing our lack of series that we're doing here. As always, you can find us on social media at Marriage Puzzle. If this is your first time checking us out, thanks so much for being here. Check us out at Marriage Puzzle and on our website, marriagepuzzle.com. We are marriage coaches, and we'd love to set up a free discovery call with you to see how we can help you out in your marriage as well. And as always, we look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage, one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.